welcome back. As we earlier said, and as part of the technological development that is witnessed by the various museums and archaeological sites here in Egypt, and in light of the Ministry of Tourism, Antiquities, Digital Transformation Technology that is prevailing in the field of tourism, a first update of a mobile application that is done to be able to take you over a whole tour over the National Egyptian Museum of Civilization in Al Fustat. And you know that it is one of the most beautiful sites in Egypt. It's a whole application, and it's going to take you on a round over the museum, right where you are, while you're standing. I mean, wherever you are, you could be able to see and take quite a close, comprehensive look over the museum. And to know more about this fascinating new application, we're very delighted to be having with us our prominent guest, Dr. Samy Hinnawi. He is Professor and Head of Department of Electronics and Communication Engineering. Good morning, Dr. Hinnawi.
Good morning.
What is the story about that application, and how is that application being taken as part or means for tourism, or for a guest who couldn't be able, like in, for example, in the pandemic, couldn't be able to come over?
Okay, the story
began
a few years ago when I had a friend of mine coming from abroad. He was Canadian, and I wanted to get him to the Egyptian Museum. I found that the display of each monument was very, very poor. Of course, it could be enhanced, but I thought of a technological way to do it, since this is my specialization. So I thought of having this as a graduation project for my students first, and I did that, and they established a standalone equipment or a device that the tourist, when he or she moves through the Egyptian Museum for Civilization, once the tourist gets approaching a certain monument, then it displays for him in multimedia mode, either text, voice, video, anywhere of my multimedia information about this particular monument without his or her intervention. So I thought about this, and I talked to people governing the museum. They welcomed the idea, and through the university now, we're trying to develop not only a standalone device, but also an application to a mobile, whether it is iPhone or it's Android like Samsung or whatever.
So how does that application work, and what exactly does it provide? We know that it's going to take us over a tour in any museum, but why in particular the Museum of National Museum of Civilization, and will it, once it is on for consumers, so will it be on also for other types, like for the Grand Egyptian Museum that is expected to be open?
Absolutely. It would be like a pilot project. Usually the information is different from a museum to another. So when we establish the information, put it in the database, and people can use it, show it that it is workable, then it could be applied. Actually, I looked at the number of museums in Egypt. There are over 65 museums. So in order to do this and to develop the information in soft form, that's a big project on itself. So once we have one project that is done, then it will be straightforward to expand it or extend it to other museums. Not only museums, actually, it could be applied, for example, to airports, to department stores, giant department stores, or any indoor application where you need to be navigated. Like, for example, a big mall. When you want to have
exactly.
access.
I mean, there are several applications like that for when you go shopping. And most of the retail shops, they have applications like that, and you can go browse all over the place.
You can go browse, but you cannot go navigation. Navigation means it tells you where to go, like GPS in mobile now. You want to go to some place, the mobile knows where you are, so it directs you, go straight, turn right, turn left until you reach to your destination.
Okay.
Indoor application is not in like developed
Not
mode.
developed or in detail. But what exactly does it provide? I mean, besides the sightseeing or exploring the place?
It provides the information you need without your intervention.
Is there a voiceover? Once, if I need a tour guide with me, will it be accompanied?
It replaces the tour guide, in fact.
So it will
It
will
is the
explain
smart tour guide, yes.
It will explain everything.
It depends on what you put in the information in the database.
Right. As we know that COVID-19 pushed Egypt towards digital information, so I presume that this is going to be for all museums.
That's right. That's what I said. It's a pilot project to make sure that it is working. Once it is working and everyone is happy with it, then it could be extended to other museums, not only museums, but other applications, as I mentioned before, like airports, giant department stores, shopping malls, shopping centers. You want to go to some place, you want to see what's inside this place. You don't need to go to that particular merchant to know what's available. For example, you go, and this I did with one of my graduation projects for students. Suppose that you want to buy a suit or a dress of certain color or certain brand. Then you put it and it tells you where to go. You go to that particular shop or that particular other shop and so forth until you get it. So for it's a piece of information, you get it right away when you are at that place.
I mean, we are in the age of technology and digitalization. It's very obvious, regardless of those applications or other applications like you kindly mentioned. But it was in the first place, the idea came to upgrade and promote for tourism. But on the other hand, will it be affecting some other side effects for people who are working and making a living from that particular field, like the tour guides and the people in that industry? So is it going to replace those people?
Well, it's like whatever technology is providing, it affects manpower. But it doesn't affect manpower in a negative way. It could be training people to do other things or supporting this, like, for example, data entry. In order to put all data or all information about each monument in the computer.
You need the tour guide.
Yes, that's right. The tour guide can put it there because he or she knows what's in there.
Well, they're staying home and they can do that with...
That's right. The best thing about digitization is geographically independence. Like, for example, I worked in a certain place and the site is in another continent. So you know this from call centers. For example, when you call a call center, then you assume that the call center may be in Egypt or maybe in the US, but the person replying to you is from India or from China or from wherever. So there is now geographical independence. The whole world has become one entity. So
that's
communication is this. And this, by the way, goes hand in hand with the digitization initiatives that's done by the government for every application. And it could be, as I said, it could be extended to several other applications, inshallah.
Right. I mean, with the advent of those types of technologies like the Meta and all that, so we can expect in 3 or 4 years, or maybe less than 3 or 4 years, it could be developed into more other explicit details.
Well,
if you like
telecommunication industry is actually the fastest pace comparing to other
Where is the privacy here?
What's that?
The privacy.
The privacy of what?
Privacy of applying those technologies, I mean.
Okay, the technique that I used there in here is in the database server is inside the museum. So you don't get the information when the tourist is outside the museum. It tells him or her the details while he's inside. It doesn't tell him. We could apply something for outside, but small, so that we invite him or her to come to the museum and see for himself or herself.
Right. Talk to us about the benefits of digitalization when it comes to fields like, for example, tourism or cultural bilateral relations or soft diplomacy in general. It's very important.
It is. Like in every other application, not only the tourism, is information transfer. How do I transfer the information from one person or one site to other person or other people? Now, for example, the digitization brings up autonomous cars. I would like to see this because it's already applied in Europe and in the US, that you don't have to drive your car. You just sit beside, and the car, you tell where you go, and then it goes everywhere by itself. Of course, not by itself, but by other program and other kinds of communication with other aspects. Yeah.
Like there are also planes that are like that. The autopilot has been there for quite a long time.
But actually with the planes it is
much easier.
It's much easier because you are in the space. But in roads like in Cairo, for example, when it is very congested, how to stop and how to turn around, turn left and so forth.
Not only necessary in Cairo, like in New York, it's the same thing. In London, it's the same. In Rome, it's the same thing.
When it is congested, when there is congestion, there is always problems.
Right, but the interference of the human element with the high-tech technology, would that sometimes create a crash?
Well, everything has its own merits. And
I mean, what are the conditions to be able to apply an autopilot, for example, in a car? How will it work? Like you said, if it's a cracky road or a bumpy road, or there is a driver that is not abiding by the rules, or it's a little bit like in Google, for example, when you change the way. I mean, how will it work? Will it be able to succeed?
If everything is done properly and the communication is smooth, it will be better for sure than the human interaction. But if some of those are not done properly, of course there will be some errors. And eventually with time...
Fatal errors or just errors?
Well, because
in
of
the case of driving.
Experimentation, it has to be going through experimentation and expecting some problems and trying to avoid those problems beforehand. Like everything, there is always chance of malfunctioning. But in this case, of course, because it depends on the lives of people, it will take some time. Especially in Cairo. I was in a conference, and the person who was presenting the autonomous cars, I said, will it be applied to Cairo? He said, yes, but it will take some time. And it will be going through the reduction of accidents in the future.
Right. How do you think digital transformation technology is going to be able to enforce the sustainable development? I mean, vision of sustainable development for growth and for the best interests of humanity in the near future. You know, there is a vision for 2030. Amongst them is digitalization.
Like now, if you look at when the mobile communication or the cellular communication came in the mid-90s, it was the first generation. Now we have in Egypt the fourth generation, or we call it 4G. People are talking now about 6G. 6G will have different domain of applications, much better services, connecting Wi-Fi to mobile to other kinds of communication. No, everything will be much better in the future because it is driven by the needs of people.
Right. But will it be free, or it's going to be a source of income for the people who are in charge? I mean, this is the question that is would cross the minds of every consumer. Are these services, as long as they are developed, will we witness a day that they would be free, or is it going to be a source of income?
Okay, again, I will compare with the first generation of mobile. If you have a mobile in the 90s, how much a minute was costing and how much a minute is costing now, and how many people are using mobile phones now. Like every child now has a mobile phone. Every worker has a mobile phone. Some people have even more than one at the same time with different service providers.
Right. Dr. Samy Hinnawi, Professor and Head of the Department of Electronics and Communication Engineering, would like to thank you so much.
Thank you.
And happy Ramadan to you, and enjoy your day.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Our pleasure.
Okay.
And we're going to go to a short break, and we'll come to continue the breakfast show, so stay with us.